I want to talk about my father, not the version of the story where he dies, the version where he was alive. You know, he worked so hard at a very thankless job. So he used to stack food boxes in the back of trucks day after day, never complained, never asked for anything for himself. He gave us everything that he had. He was funny, he was kind, he was genuinely easygoing in a way that made everyone around him just feel a little more relaxed. He never said a bad word about anyone, not once that I can at least remember. And so many people came to his funeral, people I had never met, people whose lives I think he quietly touched. And I didn't even know until I saw them filing past his casket. He was simple, and I mean that as the highest possible compliment. Look, he wasn't a brilliant man or an ambitious man. I think he just could have been really genuinely happy with just a little house, loving wife, a couple kids to raise, you know? If things had only been different, if my mother just hadn't needed the world to be so much bigger and better than he was to her. I don't think he was just defeated by life. I think he was a great deal defeated by the mismatch between who he was and who she required him to be. I spent a lot of years being furious at him for leaving us. And somewhere along the way, I really came to understand that the leaving was not about us. It was just the only exit that he could find from a pain that just was too large to carry. And that understanding did not come easily, and it did not come quickly, but it did come. And this episode is about that journey, right? Between those two places. You know, it's funny, the summer before he died, I could feel him pulling away. So at that point, I was 13. And I noticed that shift. It was like this growing distance that I didn't understand, I couldn't explain, I had no words for it. Looking back now, I understand that he was suffering from profound depression, and you can see it in the photos. He just looks really gray and gaunt and miserable. I mean, honestly, the whole family does. But at 13, I didn't have that word. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that he felt really far away, and I thought it was my fault. Well, I thought there was something about my body. You know, there's something that happens when a girl starts growing up and her body begins to change. And the men in her life, you know, they just don't quite know how to be around her anymore. So it's like that easy physical affection that you have with children, the wrestling, the rough housing, the sitting on laps, the casual touch, all of a sudden it just stops. It's like a switch gets flipped and no one talks about it. And no one really explains it to you as a young girl, because you still feel like a child. You are a child, but your bodies begin to signal something else. And then that sudden withdrawal of innocent touch, I think it can feel when you're young like love is just being taken away. Like maybe you've done something wrong or become something wrong. And you know, as an adult now, I've watched it happen to young women in our family. Like I see the switch and it breaks my heart every time I see it, because I'm like, ooh, I recognize that. I know what that feels like from the inside as a young girl. So that particular summer, I was really trying to reach him. I was trying to kind of close the distance. I just didn't understand what it was. So I joined a softball team. Okay, I want to be clear. I hate still softball. I was the kid that would duck when someone threw a ball my direction. The entire experience was a humiliation from start to finish. And I quit after like a couple of weeks. And my father, bless him, he fully supported that decision, because and I say this just honestly, I was an embarrassment on that field. But here's the thing, the point was never softball. The point was I had spent years watching him coach my brother's Little League team. And I thought, I don't know, maybe if I play softball, I don't know, maybe he'll coach me, maybe I could get him to look up from wherever it was that he had gone inside himself, and he would see me standing there really just wanting to be near him. He didn't. He was just too far gone at that point. And, you know, it was just months later and he was just gone entirely. So if you've seen episode 1, you know what happened. February 1985, January, I turned 14, and a month later, my father died by suicide. But what I haven't really talked about is the very specific guilt, okay, that came with that event. So, okay, my mother had spent years making us choose, like literally out loud in front of him. We had to choose her over him. And we did it because she held all the power, and we were terrified of what it would cost us if we did not. But he didn't know that. All he knew was that his children looked him in the face and said, we pick her. And I carried for a very long time the weight of wondering if that had something to do with why he just up and left us. If we had just confirmed something that he already believed about himself, we just made it worse. You know, you're not worth staying around for. So the rational adult part of me, I know that that's not true, right? A man in that level of pain, he was not making some kind of calculated decision about his children's loyalty in that moment. But the 14-year-old part of me, the child who'd been forced to choose mother over father, well, that part of me carried it for decades. And here's the thing about grief. When it's complicated by guilt and fury, and a mother who immediately wrote a different narrative, it just doesn't come out clean. When people ask if I was sad, I would say, hell no, he was selfish. He chose to leave. Why should I cry over him? And in those moments, I meant every word. I was stealing myself, but secretly, in the place that I didn't show anyone, I fully understood the impulse. In the year or two after he died, I thought a lot about following him. Not constantly, okay? And not with like a detailed plan, but like that option just lived in the back of my mind, like a door that I knew it was there. There was a way out of pain when it felt too big for one person to carry, and it was right there. And I even tried once. In the most spectacularly unsuccessful way imaginable. Okay, look, I had a curling iron, I had some vague idea of what a noose would look like, and I just couldn't for the life of me figure out how to make one work with a curling iron attached to a hook on the ceiling in my bedroom. I'm sorry, but when I look back at that teenager and the absolute chaos of that contraption, there's something kind of tender about how desperately incompetent I was at the thing I was trying to do. And I wasn't really ready to go. I didn't know how to say I needed help. And honestly, there was another problem. I couldn't write a suicide note that would survive my mother's edits. You know, part of that fantasy, the note that I just dreamed of leaving, the scathing letter that just said everything that I was burying, it was aimed directly at her. I thought, how is she going to explain this? How is she going to look at herself if one of her children now does the same thing? Maybe then she'd finally have to see that she played a part in this. It was the most extreme version of what I had always done. Just wanting her to feel something real, trying to get her to finally see. And I know she wouldn't have, I know that now, but I didn't know it then, right? Okay. Here's what losing a parent to suicide, particularly when you felt like you were having to earn love and forced to choose between them and you don't get to say goodbye. Here's what gets installed. A constant low-level bracing for the next leaving. It's not conscious, it's in the nervous system. It's in the choices that you make about who to love, how close to let them get. And for me, it kind of looked like this, playing the perfect wife. Until I was just running on empty. Because if I was flawless enough, maybe I would be loved. And the slightest criticism landing like proof that the end was coming, right? It was evidence. Feeling strangely deserving of being treated poorly. Because if my father who loved me could leave, then maybe being left is simply what I deserved. And a deep inability to ask for what I needed, because needing anything felt like handing someone the power to leave. And then underneath all of that stuff, just a really hollow feeling that then I tried to fill with, I don't know, food, shopping, things, vacations, constant motion, just anything to avoid the silence where the loss lived. Okay, this is what the abandonment wound looks like in ordinary life. It's not dramatic, it's exhausting. It's just the low hum waiting for the person you love to finally just do what you've always known that they would do, leave. And the specific cruelty of it is that, sometimes when someone actually stays, when someone is consistent and present and genuinely there, it feels suspicious. It feels foreign. It feels like something that cannot possibly last. Because your nervous system, it doesn't have a template for people staying, only for leaving. When the person who was supposed to stay doesn't, you spend the rest of your life bracing for everyone to leave too, until someone or something teaches your nervous system a different story. Okay, things came to a head for me in my own marriage. From the outside, people thought we looked like the perfect couple, but I was so deeply unhappy, and I never let it show. I couldn't love him fully because I couldn't love myself. And I was bone certain that no one could ever love the real me. So I built a polished, capable, warm facade, and then I just lived behind it completely. And the cruelest part, I wasn't worried he would leave, because that version of me, that was easy to love. Who wouldn't? But it also meant I was completely alone, even while I was married. The abandonment wound that my father left me and my mother left me, what it taught me was that the real version of me, not good, not enough, not worthy of being truly loved. So I made sure no one got close enough to really find out. And I called that a marriage. I felt unworthy of my own children's love. Oh, that same voice that ran through my father, it was running through my head. I was reenacting the same patterns, different stage, but it was the same script. I didn't follow my father's exit, but I found my own version of it. I left. I walked away from all of it, the marriage, the house, the financial security, job. I didn't fight for any of it. I believed that it was what I deserved, that leaving everything was my punishment for being who I was. And something unexpected happened. I survived completely alone with nothing, starting over. I survived. And then discovering I survived completely alone was, I think, the first genuinely new information my nervous system had received in decades. I wasn't broken but beyond repair. I was broken, but I was fixable. I wasn't just blowing up my life. I was blowing up the child version of myself, the one that had been running on that original operating system my whole life. And I was making room for something better. And that process has been slow. It's not been linear, and it's cost me things that I can't get back. But it's also given me everything that I have now, including the reason that I'm sitting here right now saying this. Because if one person that's watching this is carrying that whispering door in the background too, if just one person recognizes in my story a weight that they thought they were carrying alone, and they hear me say it out loud, that it's really, genuinely, it is going to be okay. That every hard thing I went through had a purpose. I want to finish with my father, because I felt like I was really furious at him for a long time. I publicly dismissed him. He was selfish. He chose to leave. And then privately, I just understood him in ways I couldn't say out loud. And somewhere in the last few years, between picking up the Bible, learning to forgive my mother, myself, discovering that I could survive alone, I really started to see him differently. He was kind, he was funny, he was easygoing, and he touched people's lives without even trying to. And he gave everything without asking for anything. Sound like anyone you know? He didn't leave me with nothing. He left me with him. The warmth the people feel around me, the way that strangers open up, The ability to sit with someone in their pain without flinching, the easy laugh, the genuine care, those are his. I didn't know it for a long time because I was so busy trying not to be her that I couldn't see what I inherited from him. Look, my father was a simple man. He wanted a simple life, and he deserved so much better than what he got. And one of the things that I carry now, not as grief, but something more like purpose, is the belief that the gentleness that he brought into the world, it did not end with him. It's still here. It's living in the children that he loved and the people's lives that he touched. And a woman at a kitchen table who still, after everything, is still sitting here trying to just tell the truth. Dad, this one's for you. I'm Deb Gorbenko, and this is Beauty Brains Bubbly, Uncorked. I'll see you next week.